All right, hello, biology people. I hope you're doing very well today. Today we get into chapter 4, which is our discussion on nucleic acids. So, this is again a very interesting, very dynamic chapter, a very critical chapter for the understanding of biology. So, up to this point, you should be knowledgeable on our proteins that are going to provide structure for the body, all the different primary, secondary, tertiary structures, the effect of enzymes that are catalyzing reactions, very critical in metabolic pathways. So that's one big chapter, one big section, one big sort of part of biology, which are the proteins. Equally, if not more important, is this idea now of the nucleic acids. So nucleic acids are going to be specialized for the storage and transmission of genetic information. So this is a big deal, right? So uh, you know that when mom and dad have a child, well, the child has characteristics of both mom and dad, and that child then links to genetic lineages, becomes part of that family tree. Well, what is the actual molecule that is passed on, right? So the actual instruction molecule is going to be then this nucleic acid, specifically DNA, deoxyribonucleic acid. So this is a big, big, big deal. If if nucleic acids, if DNA stops being passed from parent to offspring, then basically that information will be lost, right? Or let's say an individual chooses not to have a family, then that unique sequence of genetic information is not passed on, and that kind of is a genetic dead end. So this idea of genetic information, genes, we're going to get to specifically at the end of the semester. We get into Mendelian genetics. We'll talk about um, you know dominant alleles, recessive alleles, that kind of stuff. But for now, just understand that nucleic acids are the instructions that mom and dad pass down to form us, and hopefully they pass good instructions and not instructions that make us have certain flaws, being colorblind, having some genetic disease, being having a high predisposition for certain diseases like diabetes or cancer. So all of those are tied within this molecule, right? DNA. So nucleic acids in two types: DNA, deoxyribonucleic acid, and RNA, ribonucleic acid. So I'm going to divide this chapter into kind of like three parts, right? So the first part being the overview. What does DNA do? How does it function? What does it work? How does it work at the sociologic level? So we're a social species, right? So um, there's a lot of interactions then that lead to the production of offspring, right? So how does DNA have an effect in that light? And then we get into some more technical biochemistry. So the shape of the molecule, the structure of the nucleic acid DNA, and then we'll contrast then the shape and structure and functionality of DNA with RNA. So right now, let's focus on the sociological effect of this DNA molecule. I'm going to come back to these two individuals, Watson and Crick. They're given credit for discovering the double helical structure of DNA. And there'll be a video associated with them a little bit later. But let's dive into the idea of DNA as a genetic blueprint. So DNA is instructions. That in the most simplest way I can explain it, that's what DNA is, right? It's the blueprint. It's the recipe. It's the again the Lego instructions that will produce basically the final product. But this is a big, big, big distinction from these genetic blueprints to the final building, right? So we're going to need bricks and cement and wiring and all that stuff. So that is going to be a process to convert the instructions to the final product. So we're going to need the Lego pieces, and we're going to need to spend time putting them together in the right sort of right position to get the final product here. We're going to need the ingredients, the oven the pans and all that stuff to get the final cooked product. But we have to start with the instructions, right? And this is what DNA is. It's that molecule that tells, as the cell is forming, as the body is forming, tells us, hey, we need some blood cells. Right? We need some nerve tissue right there. We need some skeletal tissue over here. Right? So it helps guide and orchestrate the rest of the development of the body. Now, I'm going to use the term boss molecule. DNA is considered to be a boss molecule. And when I say boss, the interpretation I want you to gain from this is that it acts as a boss. So in this situation, the boss is just giving orders. Hey, do this, build this, form this. This is in contrast to what we consider a leader, right? The leader is out there in front, getting their hands dirty, working, putting effort as well, right? DNA does not do that. Right? DNA is not a leader. DNA is a boss, and it's giving these instructions. So it orders and commands, but it itself doesn't do a whole lot, right? And backtrack. These blueprints don't build the building. The Lego instructions don't build the Legos. The recipe doesn't cook the the cake, whatever. So it's a start, right? They are the boss. They are the instructions, but they themselves require the assistance of other factors to get the products completed. So DNA gives instructions, but it doesn't actually do much work. But it's a very, very good boss molecule, right? And because it's a boss molecule, that opens the door for this idea that we call the selfish gene hypothesis. Again, it's a hypothesis. It's not necessarily a theory, but this individual Dawkins, Richard Dawkins, has come up with this idea of DNA being a selfish gene, a selfish molecule. And to kind of elaborate and simplify what his idea is that DNA that's in each and every one of our bodies has a couple of ulterior motives, right? The DNA wants to get itself passed to another generation, and DNA wants to make sure that we are taken care of. So making us very, very selfish. So if we look at these two kids, they're fighting over they're fighting over a very, sorry, they're fighting over a very, non-fightable object, right? They're not fighting for the truck, they're fighting for the wipey box. Right? Why are they fighting? Because that's what we're programmed to do. We're programmed to get, and we're not really programmed to share. We have to be taught to share. Right? If you have a brother or sister, I bet y'all look like that often, right? Fighting with our siblings, fighting for mom's attention, fighting for, for this or that, some sort of limited resource. And the wild animals fight for the opportunity to mate. So they put themselves at risk. They put themselves in harm's way. Why? For the chance to reproduce. Right? So DNA sort of trying to ensure our own safety, right? So we take care of us first, and then maybe our close family second, our offspring. And then, well, if we have extra, we may help a stranger. We may help another individual. But um, that is something we had to be taught, and that goes back to some of your morals and some of your ethics. But in the wild, think of wild animals. Wild animals, they look out for themselves. There's not a whole lot. There are some what we call altruistic behaviors, uh, but typically, if an organism helps out another organism, it's expecting something in return. If you give somebody a ride, hey, you're expecting them to pitch in for some gasoline, or you're expecting a favor later on down the road, something like that. So that's the idea. We don't, as according to Dawkins, we very rarely do things out of the goodness of our heart. We do things because we might get something in return, right? Even the idea of being religious per se, right? So a lot of people are doing very nice things. And why are they doing nice things? In hopes that they're going to get something in return later, something up there, right? We don't want to go down there. We want to go up there. So again, the idea, we're not doing good things sometimes just because we want to do good things. We do good things in hopes of getting reciprocated, of getting something in return back. So that's this idea of the selfish gene hypothesis. So we talk about motives, right? DNA being selfish. When organisms reach that reproductive age, think of you, maybe think of your younger brother, very weird creatures, right? Little brothers that are in that puberty stage, right? Awkward, these kind of smell bad. They kind of get kind of creepy and weird, right? So something that kicks in animals is the libido, right? If you remember when you were a kid, I remember we had our little clubhouse and we had very strict rules, right? No girls allowed. Girls have cooties. We don't want girls in our clubhouse, right? You grow up a little bit and the libido starts kicking in, and then well, guys, we need to reanalyze our admission policy. Maybe girls and cooties aren't such a bad thing, you know. So the DNA starts to send that message: hey, reproduce, reproduce, reproduce. We get double whammied, that double effect now with the hormones. So hormones, sexual characteristics develops, this sexual drive and that reproductive necessity. Oh, we got to find a mate, we got to find a girlfriend, we got to find a boyfriend, right? So it happens in all animals, right? Here, somebody sent this to me a while back. This is where Easter eggs come from, right? A rabbit and a chicken doing some things there. Maybe you have a little dog that gets really intimate with a pillow, or you go to somebody's house and their dog is very intimate with your leg, kind of awkward, but it's the drive, right? It's this drive, this urge for reproduction. And remember, DNA has that sort of drive. We're going to see DNA in every cell, and every cell has that potential and ability to reproduce. If we analyze this picture, I see a dog, very skinny, but I can tell she's been nursing, so I can tell she's had puppies. If DNA was not selfish, DNA would say, you know what, man, no, she's not ready. She doesn't even have enough food for herself. What is she doing having puppies? Right? But DNA didn't say that. DNA says, well, you're of age, you have the ability, the potential to reproduce, go for it. YOLO, right? Reproduce. Right? I don't care if he's handsome or not, damn it. You know, that's sort of the idea of this selfish gene. This cat had kittens. Um, I don't know. Maybe some of you have gone through this sort of scare, or maybe this has had an impact on the trajectory of your life, both male and or female. DNA doesn't care whether you're young, you have all this potential ahead of you, um, you're you're sexually able to have a child. We become sort of the female cycles begin, the male starts producing the sperm, and basically this is that urge and that drive and that idea that, oh, I got, I want to reproduce, I want to, because it feels good, right? So we have all this manipulation of the sensory sort of sensation. We have the libido, the hormonal influence, and then that DNA telling us to reproduce. And it has happened, right? We have over 8 billion people on planet Earth today. So if this stopped and people stopped reproducing, then our species would eventually just die out. But again, that's not happening right now, right? So we're very, very prolific all over the planet. So we have this libido, right? We have this libido. And then what complicates things sometimes is we put our modern day sort of constraints on something that naturally is happening. So we factor in now morals, ethics, religion, that kind of stuff. I don't know if y'all have seen the movie Deadpool, right? Deadpool is a is a comedy, whatever, Marvel movie, but it's violent, right? There's a lot of violence, and I don't know if maybe your little brother has seen it, your little sister's seen Deadpool, whatever. Um, in our society, violence is, we know it's out there. It's not really um, we don't really think much about it, right? So let's say your little brother's watching Deadpool with you there, right? Oh, cool, cool, fighting and blood and shooting. But then certain scenes come up, right? Oh, these scenes come up, and what do, right? With the little ones, right? We may cover their eyes. Oh, no, 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 don't look at that. They're doing naughty things, right? Naughty things between two consensual adults, right? Kind of shows you the sociological sort of hypocrisy that we see sometimes, right? So killing somebody else is a crime, right? Violence, is murder. That's a crime. That is illegal, right? Having consensual interactions with somebody else, not illegal, right? But what do our modern ethics say? Oh no, no, they're too young to see that, right? No, 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 naughty stuff. Don't want to see that, and that just makes us want to see it more when we're kids. No, I want to see what's going on. Oh yeah, is that how that works? Oh yeah. So again, the idea that the effort of DNA to guide and force us to do certain things, it's always there, right? But we tend to turn off that ability, right? And for good reason sometimes. So this idea of DNA manipulating us is used a lot in advertising. So here we have, the purchasing of cosmetics, multi-billion-dollar um, you know, what are they what are they advertising here? I'm not quite sure. Oh, I guess perfume, right? So if you buy this perfume, you get a hot model as a date, maybe, yeah. Mentos, oh, interesting advertisement. I don't know what your eye sees here, right? What does your eye see in this? Do you see bottles of beer, or does your mind see something different, right? So we see this manipulation a lot by these big businesses using our sort of the subliminal sort of influence on our libido and that DNA interaction there. Um, you know, Going back to economics, right? So basically, we analyze most clubs. Why are people at the club, right? They're they're there. They can drink alcohol at their house, right? Why are why are they there buying overpriced alcohol, right? Well, probably to increase their odds, increase their chances of meeting somebody and engaging in these pre-mating rituals and hopefully then mating rituals and uh, trying to get that DNA passed along, right? The DNA is telling this guy, yeah, it's just a good idea. Keep buying them drinks. Keep buying them drinks. Yeah. Um, if you've ever been at an ATM late at night, you're probably not taking out money to pay the mortgage, right? You're probably using that money for something the DNA is telling you to do, right? So um, some of you know what this is, some of you may not, but basically, why do these these places exist, right? Well, because it's that idea of that libido, that reproductive necessity, regardless of how it's acquired there, right? So again, very very dominant influence in our society, right? So again, even the way that we dress has a big impact. So, ladies, I don't understand how these shoes can be at all comfortable, right? I've seen ladies almost breaking their ankles, right? These girls are out cold. This is very common up north. It's a cold, wintry day, and then very skimpily clad individuals. Why? Why that case, right? And why do people spend so much money on chones, on underwear, right? Because um, really, I mean, a cheap Walmart brand would do the same thing, I suspect, as some of these very pricey chones. So why do we do such a thing, right? And again, we go back to that selfish gene hypothesis. It's the idea that we want to make ourselves as handsome, as beautiful, as attractive, as we want to advertise that we are searching for that interaction, right? So again, when they're out freezing, putting their health at risk, who do we blame? Well, that's DNA's fault, right? DNA manipulating their behavior. In the United States, we're very far behind in algebra skills, right? We're terrible as a collective group. Uh, I think it's not because we're not intelligent as Americans for mathematics. I think it's because all of these equations and all the basic concepts of algebra are typically presented in about seventh or eighth grade. And I don't know if you can think back to seventh or eighth grade. You weren't paying attention to nothing in seventh and eighth grade. You were flirting around, passing notes in class, oh, falling in love with this person, falling in love with that person. So again, we're not focused a lot. And think of any teenager, right? I commend every, you know, middle school teacher out there on the planet teaching seventh and eighth graders. It's a tough year to make anything stick in their minds, right? They're just so distracted and the hormones are raging in their bodies. So in this situation, right, two individuals and somebody walking past, why did this person turn his head, right? It's his fault. Yes, he should have control over his actions, but it's that again, that DNA libido that's in place, right? So Beyonce walks past, well, you gotta kind of turn around and get a glance, I guess. Yeah. So that's the idea of libido, right? And how it manipulates our behavior. This DNA molecule. I don't know how religious some of you are. Some of you might go to church. Some of you might, be in that holy place, and that switch doesn't turn off. Right? You're sitting next to that pretty girl, that handsome fellow, and and what is DNA saying? Oh, she's so beautiful. He's so handsome, right? And it's hard to just turn that switch off, right? Because once we get of age, DNA has that manipulative effect, and it's throughout our whole life, right? So first of all, I'm not sure why they would go dressed like that to church, but if that person sat next to you at church, like, oh, thank you, Lord, for for letting that girl sit next to me at church, yeah. So the idea that genetic manipulation, the DNA ulterior motive, wanting to be passed on, is very, very profound, right? So takes a lot of willpower and self motivation, self constraint sometimes to act as a civilized adult, right? And some people have mastered that skill. A lot of people have not. So the idea of DNA having this very, very profound effect on our sociology, psychology as well, right? So that's one of the aspects of DNA. I'm going to stop the video here now, but the next one we'll look now at the actual structure of the genetic molecule, right?